This week's parashah is the most important parashah in the entire Torah. You may ask, why is this week's parashah the most important in the entire Torah? Well, let me tell you. Parashah Shoftim contains the famous verse, "Justice, justice you shall pursue." We read about judges and kings, rebellious elders and idol worshippers. We read about cities of refuge, unsolved murders, and how to form an army. But none of that is why this is the most important parashah in the Torah. The reason this is the most important parsha is because it teaches us how to judge properly. In chapter 17, we read about what to do when a difficult case arises. We read, "If a case is too baffling for you to decide, you shall promptly go to the place that Hashem will have chosen, and appear before the priests or the magistrate in charge at the time, and present your case. When they've announced to you the verdict in the case, you shall carry out the verdict that is announced to you from that place that Hashem chose, observing scrupulously all their instructions to you." And then the verse we want to look at. "You shall act in accordance with the instructions given to you and the ruling handed down to you. You must not deviate from the verdict that they announced to you, either to the right or the left." What does that last bit mean? You must not deviate either to the right or the left. Rashi asks the same question and answers as follows. You must listen to the sages, even if they tell you that left is right and that right is left. That's a bit jarring. Even if the sages tell you something that is clearly wrong, i.e. your left hand is your right hand, you still have to listen to them? Sure, listen to the sages is important. And even if they give a ruling you don't understand, you can defer to their wisdom. But we still need to listen to them when they're saying something clearly wrong? That can't be right. Rabbi Hartstein shares a wonderful insight. We need to take note of the example the Torah and Rashi gives. The Torah and Rashi doesn't say what's up is down or what's black is white. It says what's right is left. The way to understand this Rashi is that we have to listen to the sages, even if what you think is right, they say is left. And what you think is left, they say is right. It's not that the sages are saying something incorrect. It's that they're judging from a different vantage point. If you and the sages are standing side by side looking at the same thing, then your right is their right. Your left is their left. But that's no way to properly judge. In order to issue a ruling, the sages can't be looking externally. They need to be looking at you, face to face. And when they're looking at you, then your left is their right, and your right is their left. When the sages make a ruling, it can't be done in a vacuum. The ruling has to take into account your unique situation. They need to face you, look you in the eye, and issue a ruling that takes into account the totality of the circumstances. And if the sages are looking you in the eye, then your left is their right. The only way to truly judge someone is to look at them face to face. And what an important lesson for this particular Shabbat. We just ushered in the month of Elul. Parashah Shoftim is always read right around the start of Elul. We're getting into high holiday mode and hopefully starting the process of introspection and teshuvah. And how do we properly do that? We need to look at ourselves in the mirror. And what do we see when we look in the mirror? Right is left, and left is right. For us to properly judge and assess our own behavior, we need to be looking in the mirror and be open to the possibility that what we thought was left is really right, and what we thought was right is really left. Open to the idea that our actions in the past year that we may have thought were right at the time were in fact off the mark. The first step towards teshuvah is recognizing those mistakes, and the only way to recognize them is by looking at ourselves face to face. That's one reason why this is the most important parsha in the entire Torah. But the other reason is that the most important piece of Torah is whatever piece of Torah you have in front of you right now. Shabbat Shalom and Am Yisroel Chai.